Hey dudes, this is Sherry Alderoni. I was an original Mouseketeer on the Mickey Mouse Club, and you're listening to Tommy Throwback Kovac on Splat from the Past. Why? Because we like you.
Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I can't tell you how excited I am for today's show, because I am interviewing an iconic legend. I am interviewing Margaret Kerry. You all know her as Tinkerbell. Yes, she was inspired by and the live-action movement model for Tinkerbell in the 1953 RKO Disney classic Peter Pan. I'm having her on the show today to talk about that and talk about lots of other things she did. She was in The Little Rascals. She was in a noir movie in 1948 called Cannon City, which I recently saw that I want to get into. She was on The Lone Ranger. She was on probably the very first sitcom ever produced by a major network, and that's called The Ruggles. She did she did voiceover work for cartoons like Clutch Cargo, Space Angel, The New Three Stooges, which I want to get into, and all that stuff. And she's an amazing lady, and I can't wait to talk to her about all that stuff. So, here is my interview with Margaret Kerry. Hey, Margaret, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Oh, this is just such a wonderful honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Look at that. Look at that. You know, with what's happening with all the virus and everything.
Yeah.
It's amazing how you're trying to fit everything in. And, of course, this was simple. I just carved out the time and said, hey, I'm going to have some fun.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And, well, now I have to turn around and ask how you are.
I'm doing pretty good, I'm just, I'm trying to, have empathy for humanity, but I'm also trying to make people forget their problems and just, have a good time.
I understand. I had a phone call from a Disney fan, a really close friend of mine that we got close being Tinkerbell and Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she is in Richmond. Her name is Christy,
mm-hmm.
and she's been there 6 weeks. They've been holed up, and her husband has been working from the house. Her daughter, who is quite a talented young lady, Bella, excuse my voice,
mm-hmm.
She's been doing her schoolwork, and so they keep wandering around and bumping into each other.
Ugh.
So last week, they're sitting there, it's 10 o'clock at night, and they're saying, what do we do? And one of them started in to talk about her favorite bathroom in a Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
And the other one spoke up and said, well, my favorite bathroom in Disneyland is so-and-so. And the third one spoke up and said, well, I know of a secret one at Disneyland. And for an hour, they spent talking about bathrooms at Disneyland at Walt Disney World to see who could top who. And locating the most inconspicuous bathroom that they knew existed. And they finished and say, are we desperate or what?
Yeah. That's pretty
funny. I agreed, honestly.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
What have you guys been doing, you folks in your family have been doing to keep busy?
We just, watch TV and do whatever we can do over here in Redding, California. It's not as crazy over here as it is in LA and San Francisco.
Redding is a delightful place. I've been there many times, and I had a cousin. I found my family after 50 years. I was adopted when I was 3.5. And I found a family, and 2 of them were living in Redding.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're on the air right now, but let me clear my throat, would you please?
Sure,
I'll be right back. Now, I feel more comfortable, and I'm sure listeners will too. There we go. So, and I love the whole, I have a stepdaughter in Wairika.
Mm-hmm.
I have my cousin lives in a place called, where is, up north.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful town where they have the university up there, and the American River flows through. Just adorable. You know, nobody
Nice.
really goes to Northern California, do they?
No, not really.
And you know, they should. Even our politicians should.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you exist for them.
Yeah.
Everything seems to go to Southern California or else, right?
Right.
So you started in with your show here, and you started in with horror movies, right?
I sure did, yes, and I still do the horror movie shows.
And what got you on the horror movies?
I've been a fan of horror movies since I was a little kid. I think that my interest in them started the same way a lot of kids' interest starts. It starts with the ghost stories, and then it goes to...
Did your parents tell you ghost stories?
No, it was more like, teachers that I had in school and people like that.
And if they were good at storytelling, you listened, right?
Of course.
Somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, do you believe in ghosts? And I said, well, if I don't, it's in Scripture, And they said, what? And I said, yeah, Samuel was brought back to tell Saul that he was not going to win. And when he was going into battle, they go, really? And their eyes get big. And I said, I don't know what you're going to do with that, but I'm not going to negate nor put a stamp of approval on it. So you must be having a wonderful time along with all of your friends and your followers on things that are going on TV, like The Walking Dead, things like that.
I'm not a huge Walking Dead fan, but yes, I mean, I talk to a lot of my guests and followers about horror stuff, and yeah, it's a great time.
And how about, did you start with, Twilight Zone?
Oh, I love the Twilight Zone, yeah.
Was it wonderful? It still is. I still watch it.
Yeah, it holds up. It's timeless.
It really, and the one that Mickey Rooney does.
Mm-hmm.
So wonderful in it. And he's the only one in the whole 30-minute show.
Yeah.
And I know he's really, I sit there I watch it on several levels. For the show itself, for the idea of the show, then how it was shot, and then the fact that Mickey Rooney was a terrific actor, and people forget that, I think, because I worked with him,
Yeah.
in 2 movies. I was not very big in them. I was 4 years old in Midsummer Night's Dream, where he played Puck, and that's a hard part to play to make it understood.
Yeah.
Because it's Shakespearean. And then I worked with him in National Velvet a few days when I was doubling Elizabeth Taylor on a couple of scenes in the movie, and he was walking alongside of me. And you know what, Tom, in National Velvet, I watched Mickey Rooney. Now, we were all going to school at this point, you understand. We're not 18 or anything like that.
Yeah.
So all of us are going to school, but Mickey Rooney was older than we were. And so he was sort of on his own. And he watched the Wrangler that was handling a pie. There was a huge horse that Elizabeth Taylor rode in the movie.
Yeah.
And Mickey Rooney didn't like the way he was handling him. And he was too rough with it. And he went and told the director. And they got a new handler for the horse. We were all happy. We were much happier. But he did it. And I said, I'm watching Mickey Rooney do this. This is something else.
Yeah.
It's a funny career.
Yeah.
So I've kept you from asking questions about me. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So going back in time, yeah, I was reading that you started at the age of 4. You were cast alongside Eddie Cantor and Joan Davis in the musical If You Knew Susie.
Almost. Almost. At 4, I was playing in Midsummer Night's Dream at Warner Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a fairy. And then I went into Our Gang.
Yep.
I did about 37 motion pictures in between there where I was the blur or I had one line, and no big deal, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was learning how to dance. And then the most wonderful thing happened. It was called television.
Yep.
I never liked working in the movies. It was never my favorite. It is boring and loud and usually dark inside a soundstage.
Yeah.
And if you're a kid, you're with a school teacher or a social worker for 3 hours, and you have to whisper the whole time. And then you could only work 20 minutes at a time, and you forget the scenes that you're supposed to do. No, it was. I could think of a lot of other things I'd rather do.
Yeah.
So when I got into TV, even before they had call letters, I was at WXYZ and W6XAO in Los Angeles, and then on Channel 13 in Los Angeles, where I had my own show for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that. But during that time, I was pulled back into doing a movie, and I turned 18 on that movie that I did with Joan Davis and Eddie Cantor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of the background of my childhood.
Wow, that is amazing. And wow, the Little Rascals. Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, how did you get involved with them?
I'm not quite sure, but I got a feeling that my mother, who really wanted to be in show business herself,
Mm-hmm.
knew it. She was old enough to be my grandmother when she adopted me. So she told my dad, who again was old enough to be my grandfather, you know some people in Los Angeles, we've got to get her to Central Casting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had these wonderful pictures that they took of me at the May Company as a child. And if you get my book, or even go on my website, tinkerbelltalks.com, you will see these 2 portraits. And my dad evidently knew a very, very old family member. He was a sheriff. His name was Eugene Biscuitous, which is a famous name in Los Angeles. So he called upon Eugene Biscuitous to see whether they could get me in Central Casting. And lo and behold, they did. So once you were in that, you could call up every day and see whether there was anything for you to do, any calls that you could go on, any interviews that you could go on. And actually, I do believe that that's how it started.
Wow. Were you working there the same time as like Robert Blake?
I never met him.
Oh.
I guess I was. And let's see, 1933, I think, was the first one that I did for them. And then when they got bought out by MGM, lock, stock, director, writers, producers, everything,
Mm-hmm.
to MGM, I think that took me into about 1938 or 39. It's hard for me to pin down because you went and did the thing and then you left, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it was great fun. It was amazing. I could not believe the talent of Darla Hood.
Yeah.
Darla should have been a bigger star than Judy Garland.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she had a voice that belted out a song. It was amazing. And then they had, after Darla went, I don't know where, they had another girl, Suzanne Barnett.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a fabulous singer. We're talking about a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I just made up my mind when I listened to them, on the playback, kind of thing while we were all doing scenes. I said, I can't sing. I will never be able to do that. And so anytime you see me singing in a movie, that's somebody else's voice.
Mm-hmm.
But dancing, I was a wonderful dancer.
Mm-hmm. I heard Carl Schweitzer was a mean little kid.
I never saw him angry. I never saw him upset or upsetting anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there were times when the pressure that was put on kid actors was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But if anybody was patient, it was Spanky McFarlane.
Yeah.
He was born with it. He was born with it inside. I mean, he'd be patient if everything blew up and you had to come back 2 days later and do it all over again. He'd be patient. But, I never saw him act up. I just saw him as a funny kid. Of course, he always reminded me of Don Knotts later on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Same idea, right. But it was a wonderful set. They took good care of the children. They cast children who were 4, 5, and 6 years old, going on 32, 33, and 34.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted us to be at least in our 30s, and of course at the same time, these tiny tots. You never had a little baby kid there. What I mean is somebody that you couldn't talk to, give direction to,
mm-hmm.
and they did it.
Wow.
I mean, Butch Jenkins could get in another movie. He could get off someplace, I'm told.
Yeah.
I never worked with him. I almost did, but I didn't.
Oh. And then you were under contract at RKO and then MGM. Who are the big stars at those studios you remember seeing in those days?
Well, with MGM, I was only under contract for 6 months,
mm-hmm.
and it's time to do a screen test. And I will never forget the wonderful story that I have about Elizabeth Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
She was a young thing, and I was a young thing, and we would go over to, let's see if I can remember her name. Oh dear, she was the drama teacher. She was married to George Sidney, the director. And she was the one that saw that every female that worked for MGM sounded like every other female that worked for MGM. She didn't want anybody to sound different. I don't know whether she ever noticed it or not. Very sweet lady. Anyway,
mm-hmm.
we would go over twice a week and have an hour with her.
Mm-hmm.
One day, I'm sitting at the bench, waiting for the time because she's in with someone, and Elizabeth Taylor came in. And let me tell you, when people tell you she was so gorgeous that you couldn't take your eyes off of her, trust me, she was so gorgeous you couldn't take your eyes off of her.
Yeah.
And she sat next to me, and she was very excited because she was going to do something on Lux Radio Theater, the big hour show, which everybody tuned into on radio.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to talk to, oh dear, I'll say Mrs. Sidney because I can't remember this lady's name.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me, would it be all right if she went ahead of me? And I said, sure, I've got time. So we sat there and chatted like two young things. And a girl came dashing in, and she didn't even ask permission. She was going to be on the Lux Radio Theater program also.
Mm-hmm.
She had to talk to Mrs. Sidney. She just had to. She looked at us and she said, okay. And we said, okay. And then she went, she came out and she said, okay, I got it. About 10 minutes later. And now Elizabeth went in to talk to Mrs. Sidney and to work over a script she was working on. And I asked the secretary, so she's going to be on Lux Radio Theater tonight. And so is this other girl that came dashing in. And she said yes. And the girl who came dashing in is going to do one commercial.
Mm-hmm.
She said, guess who has the lead on the radio show? And I said, you're kidding. She said, no, it's Elizabeth Taylor. And that whole time, she never said a word. She never told me. She never acted snooty, like, well, I'm the star of it. Nothing. And it took the secretary to tell me that she was going to do the lead in the play that night on Lux Theater. My estimation of her went so way up, I can't tell you. Well, it's never really come down.
Yeah. Wow. I saw a noir film thriller that you did called Cannon City.
Oh, my. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. My agent got me the part in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
It was made at Desilu Studios. When I say that, you will understand.
Yeah.
The sound stages were no more than, maybe 12 feet, 15 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
You could hardly light them. But that's where Desilu did their show later on. Anyway, it was crowded. It was a low budget. Canyon City was a jail, famous jail, one of the toughest jails in the country.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly, it's in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really about what do you call him? Who was the head of a jail? Okay, I want to say principal. That's not right.
The warden.
Not him. And I'm sorry?
The warden.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'm doing this scene. I'm practically the only girl that's in it.
Mm-hmm.
And along come the bad guys who've escaped from Canyon City. And one of them takes me out on the back porch. And, of course, he wants to do bad things to me.
Yeah.
And Scott Brady was the sort of hero bad guy in it. So he comes out on the back porch, and they fight because Scott wants this man to leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this man is not going to. And I'm supposed to, in the middle of this fight, get over on the back porch right next to the building,
Right.
the farmhouse, and stay there, when the fight is going on. Well, what happened was that Scott Brady swung one, hit me right in the eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't see. So I went over to the wall, dropped to my knees, and crawled towards the doorway because I knew that there was a bank of lights there, and I couldn't get through because I could not see where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
And they finished the scene, and it was a print. We printed it, and the director came over, and he was livid. Because it was a great scene, but I didn't go to the doorway. And I turned around and looked at him, and there was blood dripping down my face. And guess what? Guess what?
What?
He fainted.
Oh, boy.
So I didn't have the other 4 scenes that I was supposed to do because they had a double run through the farmhouse, for safety.
Yeah.
And I went and stayed in for 2 weeks, and they paid my salary for 2 weeks.
Wow.
I was just so upset about it. He sent me flowers. He would call me to find out how I was. And there's such nice people in this business.
Mm-hmm. Nice people. I mean, there's bad people too, of course, but there's also nice people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them start out bad and learn that it doesn't pay.
Yeah.
And so they change.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. I'm always the optimist.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you did it up.
Bell is the optimist, right?
Right.
Yes, adventure home. What's around the corner? Let's have an adventure. And I think they saw that in me when they cast me in the role to be her model and do all the acting for her and facial expressions and so on. Because that's what I do.
Yeah. How did Tinkerbell and Peter Pan come into your life?
Well, I had been at ABC.
Mm-hmm.
We had done 172 half-hour shows for network, the first family network show on ABC, and we did 172 of them back-to-back, if you can imagine. We did not take off at Christmas time or anything.
Yeah.
And so out of that, I got hired at ABC to be a dancer. I had also done the Eddie Cantor show while I was doing the Charlie Ruggles show, the movie. To be a dancer in a show called Let There Be Stars that ABC was doing with Tommy Noonan and Pete Marshall as a solo dancer. And that was too big for TV. They couldn't afford it. They couldn't get the sponsors that they wanted. So that closed down, and I got a call from the choreographer of that show to come over to 20th Century and be an assistant dance director at 20th. So we were doing a movie called I'll Get By with June Haver and Gloria DeHaven. And I got a call from my agent who said, can you get off tomorrow? They're interviewing for a 3.5-inch sprite who does not talk. And I said, well, I really shouldn't take a day off because she said, it's Disney. I said, it's Disney. I'll be there at 6 a.m.
You're a big Disney fan?
So excited. I was so excited.
Yeah.
Oh, Tommy, everybody was if they've got a call to go over to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went over and probably got lost on the lot. It is a very tiny lot. But I did. I was looking for a rehearsal hall, and no, it was the animation office of that great genius, Mark Davis.
Yeah.
So I went in and I did a pantomime for him to some music to a record I had. And then he asked me to do that Tinkerbell. You probably don't remember the movie, but in it she lands on a mirror in the nursery, and she preens herself. And I did it like an 11-year-old girl who had never seen herself before. Why would they have a mirror at Neverland, Yeah. That's what I figured. So after I did that, they asked me, would it be convenient for you to come to work next Tuesday? Well, Tommy, I had never been asked whether to be convenient to come to work. Mm-hmm. But what it was with doing they fitted your schedule of the things that you had to do with the things or the scenes that were coming up that they wanted to do. And they could get the props ready and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, and we always seemed to work it out. It came, it was over 9 months, I do believe, that I did it. And I had a wonderful time, wonderful people there. I still, I got married last February.
Right.
And my darling new husband, Robert Bokey, his 4 children flew in from all over the United States with their spouses. And so I thought, well, maybe they would like to take a tour of Disney Studio. Mm-hmm. And I called up this dear man, Howard Green, who's been at the studio, I guess, for 38, 40 years, communications. And I said, could you set up a tour? He said, I'll take the tour myself. I think he's a VP of creative or something like that. Anyway, we had a wonderful blast. Can you imagine? I worked there the last time in 1952. Mm-hmm. And I still know all of these people. And they are just absolutely dear.
Yeah.
You don't do that studios.
Yeah. I'm sure that you had no idea that Tinkerbell would not only become iconic, but also used as Disney's mascot, so to speak.
Had no idea, none whatsoever. I was just happy to do her. I thought she was absolutely a delight. And I hope that I was doing justice.
You sure did. You sure did.
Thank you.
I mean, there was a rumor for years that Marilyn Monroe was the model for Tinkerbell.
Yes, yes. And intuitively, that sounds right, doesn't it? I mean, Marilyn could do anything. I loved her.
Yeah.
She was an amazing person. I worked with her only once, and believe me, she was an amazing person.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, she was under contract to 20th. They were not about to loan her out to do something behind the scenes at Disney. I mean, they were paying her money, and they were grooming her. And so, but the main thing was, the reason that at that point Marilyn would have had her own take, don't misunderstand.
Mm-hmm.
But my take was the take of a dancer. All of Tinkerbell's movements that you watch is that of a dancer, even the way that she uses her hands. And she puts them on her hips. There's the way a dancer would. Her walk is a dancer. And Marilyn was not a dancer at that time. Years later, she learned how to do personality dancing like no one has before or since.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What was Walt Disney like?
He was charming.
Mm-hmm.
We were on a dark sound stage. I was in the middle of the sound stage, what they call a huge screen of fabric that lights hit it and gave sort of a silhouette of me. It's called, excuse me, one more time. Here I go. Hold on.
Okay.
That's better. And it's called a sight, cyclorama, for cyclorama. And then a 35 millimeter full cruise, about 10 on lighting, up in the catwalk and all around with different lights. But unlike other people who were doing unlike other people who were doing body work for these different characters,
right.
I did not have to match any lines that I had recorded already. They did. I didn't. So we had the big door open. You've seen a soundstage picture with the big door open so they could drive trucks in and out.
Of course.
And one day, here came a group of men. Oh, there must have been 15 of them, with Buddy Epson leading the group. You couldn't miss him, his walk.
Yeah.
And they went over to the side of the sound stage and started talking, and I kept doing what I was supposed to be doing. I would look over, and there was a two-step little stage against the wall, and then there were pieces of paper that looked like, what's the word I want? Looked like somehow to figure out what size an animated character should be next to a full-fledged human being. Well, it turned out to be the beginning of animatronics. That's what they were doing, because I didn't know it at the time. Well, then, all the men disappeared except one lanky individual who came walking over to talk to Mark Davis and Jerry Geronimi, the over-director for the movie, and the cameraman, and I was invited in. And they just took me right into the conversation, and it happened 4 times. It was quite wonderful. He was well-dressed, much thinner than I thought, and I was dumbfounded because I was talking to the head of the studio. I was brought up all my life to know that the head of the studio was God.
Yeah.
I couldn't make no mistakes. And here was a man I was talking to. So everyone was just as sweet and kind as could be.
Oh, that's great. So, how is Peter Pan how you transitioned into doing voiceover work?
Yes, because I also did The Red-Headed Mermaid. Mark Davis, the great artist, called me and said, "Do you want to do some work again?" And I said, "Sure." And so I get on to recording to record the lines. And here is June Foray.
Yeah.
Who is June Foray, you ask? Or your listeners are?
She was
June Foray, if anybody listened to Bullwinkle,
Yep.
June is Rocky, the squirrel.
Yes, she is.
And she's also the girlfriend of the mounted policeman, which I absolutely adore.
Boris and Natasha.
And if they have seen the movie Mulan, June did the voice of grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So June was all over radio,
Yep.
every place. She's just famous as a voiceover. Well, how it really started was we three, Connie Hilton, myself, and Jude Foray, left the recording stage, stepped outside and started to say, "Why are we battling and trying to get on camera work? It's voiceover work. I mean, it's so great. You don't have to use makeup. You don't have to fix your hair. You don't have to get into a costume. You don't have to be there at 6:30 in the morning. You don't have to learn your lines. You could read them." And we all decided that that's what we were going to do. And so I've done about 600 cartoons for television with 48 different voices and 21 different dialects. And it's been wonderful. And of course, I will add to that because I chuckle at this. Before she passed away, she's about 12 years older than I. I'm 91, so it would have been a stretch for her. But I was teasing her one day, and I said, "The best voice that you ever did." She said, "What?" I said, "It was grandmother in Mulan, and you had the best line." She said, I've forgotten. And I said, the line was, "Betty, you should have brought back a man." But we stood there and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And June and I go so far back. It's just grateful to even think of her.
Yeah.
So when I worked for the Three Stooges on that cartoon segment,
yeah.
Why, they loved me doing the witch. They loved the witch. They wanted the witch.
Yeah.
They would write the witch into everything.
I love that cartoon. A lot of people didn't, but I like the Three Stooges cartoon.
Well, it's a strange cartoon. It was done on a shoestring, and it shouldn't have been. But then the Three Stooges did almost everything on a shoestring.
Yeah.
They really did.
Yeah, all their movies and stuff, they were all pretty low budget.
Did you ever see the movie that they did where they were used chariot salesmen?
Oh, I'm trying to remember which one is that. Is that the Hercules one?
One where they're sitting there with their used chariots way back 2,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got the gate and all the advertising that we use for automobiles today. They put the word chariot in. And this man steps inside wanting to buy a chariot. Mm-hmm. And so they give him a song and dance. He pays them. They push him out the gate, close it, and of course, he's a block down the street. The chariot falls apart, and now they've got to run the whole rest of the thing. One of the funniest ones.
I've seen every Three Stooges short, and I have every one on DVD. I'm going to look for that one. I don't recall that one.
Oh, dude, that's so funny.
Yeah, it sounds hilarious.
Yep.
I noticed, too, you worked with Hal Smith a lot on Clutch Cargo and Space Angel. Were you friends with him?
Well, I'll go back even on the Charlie Ruggles show that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
They brought him in as an announcer because they were having the actors do the announcements,
Mm-hmm.
and we were supposed to stand in front of the camera for 1 minute, look into the camera, and do a live 1 minute commercial. And usually it was for Dr. Ross dog food is doggone good. Well, the mistakes that we would make were amazing because nobody ever heard of a cue card. So they brought Hal Smith in to be the announcer. And that's the first time that I ever worked with Hal. What a doll baby. Oh. And did you know that he had a beautiful singing voice, very much like Mel Torme's?
I believe it. Yeah, he was such a talented man. I'm sure he was a good singer.
Oh, he could do anything. And he was the best Santa Claus.
Yeah.
He was booked up 3 and 4 years ahead.
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
Go ahead. I'm interrupting you. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. There was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon with all the Hanna-Barbera characters. It was a Christmas show, and he was the voice of Santa Claus. I remember that.
Oh, I mean, we would stand. Maybe I told you this a long time ago, but when we did all the deficit financing cartoons that we did, that meant that we had to show a cartoon station by station. We had no money a big pot of money to start out or any contracts. So Hal would do all the men and most of the animals, and I would be all the women and the children and some of the animals. And we would do dialects then. And we would learn dialects as we were going. I one day looked at Hal, who were across the stand microphone, and said, Hal, it says here I'm supposed to do a German accent. I don't know how to do a German accent.
Yeah.
Hal says, you don't know how to do a German accent. You step over here, and I will show you how to do a German accent. You need a sentence. I said, I need a sentence. He says, yeah. And you have to say it before you can get my sentences. She was looking out the window when I talked to her. And so I went back and I thought to myself, she was looking out the window when I talked to her. And I did the next line with a German accent. That's how we learned. That's how we learned. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And, I mean, Hal Smith, he was great on the Andy Griffith show, which I see.
Wasn't he adorable?
Yeah, I see you did a couple episodes of that.
Yes, but I didn't work with Hal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to say.
Oh.
Yeah, I would have loved to. But I did several other things with Hal. One of them I remember, not everything turns out in show business. Paul Frees,
Mm-hmm.
huge voiceover. Hal Smith, myself, forgotten who else was there. We were called to come up with some interesting voices for a new cartoon that was being made out of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they got the cream of the crop there, and we had 6 microphones sitting up that we almost had the mic to ourselves. And we had a director who was telling us what he wanted, and we would try different voices, and Hal did the lion. Oh, he was so great about the lion and how he could do that. Anyway, we finished. We felt good about what we had done and coming up with new voices. You know what they did?
What did they do?
A recording. They took a recording and sent it to Australia and found people there that could copy us on the voices that were chosen.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they recorded in Australia. I think that's the last time I saw Hal. Yeah, I think it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I was reading recently, you've been diagnosed with something called face blindness.
Yes. All my life, I could always think. I was so confused from the time I was a little kid that I could memorize a script easily, which I did one time for a girl, 11-year-old girl who got sick on the stage play, and I learned her I could tell you which person was the director and what person was the AD. Their faces all look alike to me. I actually walked by my husband one time when he was picking me up from the airport. I didn't recognize him. And I always thought there was something, this is terrible, I'm just awful. It's just ghastly that I get into all of these problems, and you don't like to say, who are you really? You don't like to do that because they come up to you hoping that you remember them.
Yeah.
And I meet so many people. But I was reading an article in the newspaper about a woman who had a thing called, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Yep.
It's called prosopagnosia.
Prosopagnosia? I can't even say it.
Prosopagnosia. But it's easier to say face blindness.
Yeah.
and Brad Pitt has it. The ex-governor of Colorado has it. Jane Goodall with the gorillas has it. And I had it.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that I read was about a mother who could not recognize her own children's faces.
Oh, wow.
And it's something that's not connected in your brain. And for all of those years of working in the business, let's see, 85 years, I thought there was something wrong with me, but I didn't know what it was. I just didn't try hard enough. So I have been giving talks on it. Turns out that my best friend has it, and she always wondered about it, because sometimes in a crowd she could not spot her daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and 1 in 50, and I must have explained this to maybe 10 people so far who have it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so, and when it's sort of like having dyslexia. You still have it.
Or Alzheimer's.
There's a name to it.
Yeah, it's like having Alzheimer's. Like you
Right.
you don't even recognize somebody. You don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very. Fortunately, I have a moderate case,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still. I can look to people if I don't know them well. If I do know them well, and I see them each month, something like that, I'm okay. But if I know them sort of, and from a D23 convention,
Yeah.
and I see them at WonderCon, and they come up to me, I have no idea who they are. But they come up with such enthusiasm, sometimes I figure I'll try and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But other times you say, hey, who are you really? And I say it with a big smile, and they go, what? They said, I have face blindness. Who are you really? Don't keep me waiting. And they laugh, and I laugh, and then we talk about it.
Oh.
Yeah. But it is difficult in show business, I will tell you.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Well, I hope you accept. Oh, go ahead.
I don't even know Cary Grant from Bela Lugosi. Oh, yes, I do. From Bela Lugosi, I do. I recognize Bela Lugosi.
Well, that's a face you never forget.
Right.
I interviewed his son earlier this year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, did you get any special stories?
Yeah, I got some little anecdotes here and there about him and stuff. I asked him.
Let me hear one. Do you have one?
Nothing handy, but I do remember this, though. I asked him a couple questions that he thought were very good questions, but he didn't have answers for them because he had no idea. I said to him, okay, he was like, I don't know, his father was 56 when he had him, and he's his only child. I said, do you know if, he tried to have a child, years before and all that? And he said, I have no idea. No idea.
Yeah. Well, that's the same way that it caught up with me. I was adopted when I was 3.5, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody told you about your family. They figured you didn't even remember it. Of course, I remembered almost every detail.
Mm-hmm.
And through being in show business, and I had produced a 15-minute documentary for the state of California on earthquake preparedness. And I figured, hey, I've been through earthquakes, I could write this, so I did.
Yeah.
And they asked me to put it on the air on a Sunday morning city show. Like L.A. has those shows that they do just about Los Angeles, etc. And I said, okay, so I did it. It's called A Quake. Don't let it shake you. And that's my son's humor. So anyway, I'm standing there in the middle of this pathway saying goodbye to the producer who has invited me to do it. We had done our work. And this woman comes dashing down, and she said, oh, I think I found my birth mother. I think I found my birth mother. And when she went, I said, what's that? And my friend Connie said, well, we had a lady here 2 weeks ago who was helping people find their birth parents. I said, well, I was adopted. And she gave me the number of this lady. And so help me, this lady within 2 months found my family. I can't tell you what it meant to know the answers to so many things that I had no clue to. And it's like the son said, I don't know whether he had tried to have other children. I don't know. Whatever, etc.
My godmother was adopted, and she has, I believe, 17 siblings that she didn't know she had, and she's met maybe 12 of them. She said that after meeting the last one, she doesn't have the desire to meet the rest of them.
Well, you can be brought up with different kinds of rules and regulations, can't you?
Yeah.
You know what, Tommy? I know that we're very casual here. I didn't unscrew the top of my water bottle. Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Be right back.
Okay.
Oh my, that's much better. Thank you for waiting.
Of course. Yeah, and her mother was basically, a lady of the night during World War II.
A baby machine.
She was a baby machine during World War II, pretty much. Yeah, it was crazy when she found that out, but it worked out good for her. I mean, she was brought up by parents who had money, so it worked out.
Yes, it makes a difference. Everybody was being adopted at some time or other. I tell you, nobody could afford the kids, and people were dying of all different diseases. So, but anyway, my two that I got were old enough to be my grandparents, as I said, and they were dear people, and they brought me up with really good virtues.
Right.
And I didn't break them, I will tell you.
Oh yeah.
I figured I don't know any others.
They lived to see you successful, of course.
Yes, they did. And that was nice. That was very nice.
Yes.
And so I'm writing another book.
Oh.
Put a plug-in for my book. It's called Tinkerbell Talks, and I've sold out, but you could get it through Amazon, and then you could go on my website, and I'm ordering some more. I have them in about a month. And if you go on the website, which is, again, tinkerbelltalks.com,
yes,
I might as well let people know. And let me tell you something. My book has 80 stories in it.
Wow.
80
stories.
And each chapter is a complete story. The longest chapter is 6 pages long. The shortest chapter is 1 page long. And it has 160 pictures in it. And what is fun, it's like Reader's Digest. You pick it up and read it where you want. And you have a complete story that way. I just didn't want people to say, oh, I've got to put a place in the book because I got to find out what happens to her or whatever. So it's a great fun read. It's a summer book. And as I say, you could get it through Amazon. Tinkerbell Talks.
Yes, I want to get a copy of that book, and I want to get it autographed, too.
I can do that.
Oh.
I can still, at 91, I can still sign my name. Isn't that exciting?
That's
I'm
good.
still tap dancing on stage.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get a copy of that and stuff. I wanted to ask you, too, about your recent marriage. So you didn't see him for a long time, you said?
70 years.
Wow.
70.
Wow.
And I was a widow for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was a widower for 8 years. And through the wonderful touch of God, as far as I'm concerned, he's a veteran, an honored veteran of World War II. And when they did the ceremony that was coming up for the 75th anniversary of D-Day at Omaha Beach, he was invited to go on a tour with other vets and, their friends to tour several cities and then to be honored at the 75th anniversary. So the first place that he started the tour was in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his friends were walking down the street of Amsterdam, and he turned around, and there was a sign that was plastered across the window,
Mm-hmm.
big letters saying, Tinkerbell's Toys. He turned around and said to his friends, did I ever tell you that I dated Tinkerbell? And they said, would you like to hear it? And so he told that. He's a beautiful storyteller. So they said, why don't we get in touch with her? And he says, oh, she won't remember. So they sent an email from a phone, I think. I don't know anything about that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
To my website, which was forwarded to me right away. And I immediately knew Robert Bokey. I remembered him all through my life and thought he was such a dear. And so he called me then from France in 2 days when I replied. And then when he got back, we talked to each other on the phone and emailed back and forth. And the fun part was, to me, I still had all these shows to do.
Mm-hmm.
For all these shows. But he lived in South Carolina. And I said, Robert, I'm on the Andy Griffith show. He said, the what? I said, the Andy Griffith show. He said, I've never seen that. I said, oh, good. Anyway, I'm going to be up at Mount Airy the third weekend of September.
Okay.
And we're going to be there for 6 days. We'll return his town, which was his birthplace, into Mayberry. Can you just drive up from South Carolina? I have no idea how far it is or anything. So he says, well, I have to have my 94th birthday first. They're giving me a big party. Well, 2 parties, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I think I can make that. So he drove up for 8 hours up to Mount Airy, walked into the big dining room, which it wasn't, the people weren't in it yet. We were getting set up for the people to come. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and it was love at second sight.
Second sight.
Yep. And then we got married on St. Valentine's Day, February 12th. And no, I'm sorry, 14th, beg your pardon. In a little brown church in the valley in Studio City.
Mm-hmm.
And on the day before, Robert's family came out, his 4 children and all of their family with them. And Disney Studios opened up its doors to us. And we went on a tour of Disney Studios, and they were thrilled.
Oh.
The next day, on the 13th, we got married on the 14th. On the 15th, Disneyama Club, the big chapters all over the United States, the main one was having a convention, and they honored us. And then the next day was Waltz barn. I hope people go and see Walt's barn when they're there in California, Southern California. And then we flew off to Sarasota because he decided that we needed to buy a house, which he did. And I'm sitting here in the front bedroom because it echoes in here. And it was all furnished. He bought it with furniture. It's beautiful. And the next thing you know was lockdown. So what a honeymoon.
That is just so sweet, Margaret. God bless you both. Oh,
Thank you.
That's
every door that God opened, it's so amazing. And when we got here, then something else happened. It worked out with it just went on and on and on. And I had the dearest man. Oh, here's one of the best things. I think a lot of people will appreciate this.
Mm-hmm.
I have never cooked in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what his hobby is?
Cooking.
Robert's hobby.
It's cooking.
He cooks every night for me. You can't believe the wonderful food. And breakfast, I get up in the morning and there it is. And I'm the best cleaner-upper you ever met.
Oh.
And once again, God put us together. I tell you.
Yes. God has a way of doing that,
Yes.
He has...
We just have to keep our eyes out,
Mm-hmm. I mean, he created a miracle for me. I didn't tell you this before, but 5 years ago, I had a really bad car accident.
Oh, dear.
And I was in a coma for 30 days.
Oh, my.
I woke up on my mom's birthday, and
look at that.
it was a miracle. I've been blessed ever since, and we were just coming off of a very bad experience. We lost everything at the end of 2013, and this happened in early 2015. And then by 2017, a miracle happened. We got a place to live up here in Redding, and I started my podcast, and just everything from there has just been
I tell you,
miraculously wonderful.
You see it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But while you're going through it, you say, hey, wait. This is not comfortable. And believe me, when you're 91, you can look back and see a whole bunch that changed my life that at the time was not comfortable at all. And then it started to straighten out, and we always know that, well, here's one for you.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't opened up churches in Sarasota yet. And so I was went on my computer to find a sermon on my computer. And there was this dear lady. I've never seen her before. She was just one of those that was so sincere. And she was talking about it, and she kept talking about Proverbs 2, 1 through 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this, not this feeling, but I perked up. So I listened to her. She was astounding. She was just uplifting and gave reasons and, backed up the things that you believed in. And then she brought it up again. And again, I got this, remember that. So afterwards, I scrambled for my Bible, and I opened up Proverbs 2, 1 through 11. And I tell everybody, look it up. It's just something that you need right then and there. And I just said, thank you. There was no reason why I should watch that lady, except my computer went there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not one of those who sits back. I do my work.
Right.
And I move ahead, and I, bless it. Here I am, picking him up and putting him down. But really, it's wonderful to know, after you read Proverbs 2, 1 through 11, to be reminded.
It is, absolutely. I'm so grateful for God giving me the second chance, Every day I'm just waking up excited that I'm going to interview somebody that I grew up idolizing, you know.
Someday I will tell you how I found a church.
Mm-hmm.
Because my parents were not believers.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying all the way through, can we go to a church? And they thought there was something wrong with that kid. But it was so wonderful how I found the church. Hollywood First Presbyterian Church.
Oh, okay.
And the church that really understood people in show business.
Yeah.
It made all the difference in the world. Well, I have kept you for over an hour talking your ear off, clearing my throat. I'm sorry, but there's something that happened around this time, and I should really never take an interview at 3 o'clock. I've got to understand that. But you've been patient, and I really appreciate that. And I hope that everyone listening can be patient. There's something, because I come from 90 years in Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And this has happened to me. There's something going on, and the good Lord knows, and I'll get that doctor who'll say, oh, take a cough drop, for heaven's sakes, Margaret. You know?
Yeah. No, Margaret, this has been absolutely wonderful and such a thrilling honor. I will cherish this for the rest of my life. Thank you so much.
Oh, Tommy, just call me anytime. You're just a dear. And blessings all over you and your family.
Oh, you too. And I hope, after this crazy pandemic is over, you get to do a signing, because I'd love to come and meet you in person.
Good.
Let's
do that.
Yes.
All right.
Accept my friend request on Facebook so you remember who I am.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. And once again, I'd like to say, TinkerbellTalks.com.
Yes.
It's the best-looking website you ever saw. A fan did it for me, if you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just charming. And Amazon has the book, Tinkerbell Talks. And keep me in your prayers, everyone. I love you all. Through Tinkerbell, I've been blessed. That's all I can say. And here's a bunch of pixie dust.
I will keep you in my prayers, Margaret. And Jiminy Cricket was right when he said, when you wish upon a star, your dreams come true.
It's so true. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Margaret Kerry. I can't even put it into words. What a great lady she is. And just how she's out there living her life at 91, whereas some people can't do that because of health reasons. And she has survived so much. I mean, she really is a gift from God. Margaret Kerry is just a gift from God. I can't believe it. It's so wonderful. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true. Later, dudes.